Practicing on scales. In this lesson, you will learn extra useful things concerning scales and playing on the piano generally. They are little lessons that will help you in your practicing of scales, chords, and improve your general playing expertise. Tips to help you practice on piano scales. Now that you have known about the scales, you will need to practice effectively in order for you to polish your skills. The following are tips to help you in your practice. 1. Get comfortable with the black keys first. The scales here are mostly D flat, G flat and B major. Your hands has longer and shorter fingers. It will be naturally easier for you to play with longer fingers. They alternatively will play the shorter piano keys more easily. Great pianists such as Chopin always had their students begin with the black keys before going to the white keys. 2. Practice chromatically. We have looked through the chromatic scales and seen that they are formed by moving half steps. Some people prefer to practice through the circle of fifths. While it is not bad, practicing chromatically gives you the advantage of moving your fingers in varying pattern as you change from scale to scale. In the long run, you gain great understanding of chords. 3. Practice musically. Whenever you are practicing, it is not just for fun or to just strike random keys without any aim. You should have your whole body, mind and emotions connected to what you are doing on the keys with your fingers. Practice like you are right on a stage playing before an audience. Point 4. Develop an inner accuracy. Sometimes piano players have to use a metronome in order for them to play accurately, whereas there is nothing wrong with using a metronome. It would be better if you play without using one. For this, you will need to develop an accurate inner pulse that will help you play rhythmatically. If you play without an even rhythm or with an uneven tempo, it will be a recipe for horrible music. With practice, you will be able to develop this inner accuracy and you won't need to over rely on metronome. 5. Avoid playing too fast. A high tempo music is not in any way bad music. For your practice, however, evenness while playing is much more important than a high tempo. This is because at high tempos you may not play very smoothly. You should therefore avoid playing too fast at the beginning until you have mastered the scales, and then you can gradually test on higher tempos. 6. Learn to play without looking. The best way for you to learn the scales is by playing without having to watch your hands. Think of a visually impaired person playing the piano. They do it so beautifully, yet they don't even see the keys. How do they do it? By training their hands through a process called proprioception, that is, having your body aware of the space around it. This is a skill that will do you a lot of good and help you play smoothly and fast. It is much more essential, particularly when reading sheet music. 7. Practice regularly. This is self-explanatory. The more you practice, the better you become in the long run. Practicing scales not only warms your fingers but also your body and mind in readiness of the task of playing ahead. Practice has been a regular word throughout this course. You will need to practice faithfully and with a lot of discipline for you to see the best result. Improvising on the piano. Some of the best pianists did not learn their art by just following the written rules, but by sometimes breaking a rule and creating their own. For you to become a great pianist, you will also need to creatively create your own rules at times. This helps a lot in improvising on your playing by allowing you to follow your own ideas rather than sticking to a set of rules. That does not mean that you disregard the knowledge you have acquired on playing the piano. Instead, it should act as a guideline for you as you try to creative ways of improving your piano playing skills. The following tips will help you in improvising. A. playing the white keys only. In a previous list where we listed the tips of helping you learn piano scales, we said you should try with the black keys first. Now, after learning that, you can improvise on your playing by doing the white keys only. The C major scale as well as the relative A minor scale are by default played using white keys only. If you begin by playing a C, emphasize it by ending with it. The same should be done with A minor key. Playing solo over chords. This is where you play individual notes and chords at the same time. For instance, you could play solo with your right hand and the whole chord on the left. This is a great way of improvising on your playing. You can also try to play a major scale with one hand and its relative minor scale on the other hand. C. Blues improvising. You will only need to learn the 12-bar blues. Later on in this course, you will learn about the 12 blue bars and how you can play about with them and enhance your improvisation. D. Superimpose scales. This is where you use scales over chords which do not fit together. For instance, you could add a whole step to a pentatonic scale. The result are a quite different sounding scale. It however sounds pretty good. Diminished chords. This is a type of chord which has 6 semitones. It spans over 5 diatonic degrees just like a perfect fifth but is narrowed by a semitone. It is this characteristic that distinguishes it from an augmented chord. A diminished chord is formed by the first note, a flattered third and a flattered fifth. That is root plus B3 plus B5. It is symbolized by DIM or small o. Using the formula above, you will get diminished chords of major scales as mentioned on the screen. Augmented chords. This one is different from the diminished chord in that it spans over 4 semitones like a perfect fourth but has an extension of semitone. An augmented chord is symbolized by the symbol aug or plus. It is formed by playing the first note or root note, the third note and a sharp fifth of a major scale, root plus third plus sharp fifth. Using this formula, you will find that the augmented chords in various keys look as mentioned on the screen. Sixth and seventh chords. A sixth chord is formed by taking the sixth note on a scale and adding it to a major chord complete with the root, third and fifth notes. For instance, if you take a G major chord and add a sixth note, it will then be called a G major sixth or simply G major 6. Please look at the screen to see how the sixth chords appear in the 12 major chords. You can also add sixth to a minor chord and it will become a minor sixth. For example, a G minor will become G minor sixth. This is done by combining the root, flat, third, the fifth and the sixth notes of a major scale. Using that sequence, the chords you will form will look what mentioned on the screen. Other than a sixth chord, there is also a seventh major chord. This is formed by adding the seventh note in a scale to a major triad. That means you play a normal chord and then add a seventh note to it. It is then symbolized by adding a 7 at the end of the triad name. For instance, to make a C seventh major chord, it will have the following notes C, E, G and B. It is then written as a C major 7 or just CM7. However, if you add a flat 7 to the major triad or chord you are playing, it will then be called a dominant 7th chord instead. For the same key of C, you will have the following notes C, E, G and B. It is written as CDOM7. Please look at the screen to see the 7th chords of 12 major chords. Suspended chords. There are musical chords bringing a variation on the major or minor triads. You can have a suspended second or suspended fourth. They are often abbreviated as SUS2 and SUS4 respectively. These types of chords can include diminished and augmented chords as well. In order for you to form a suspended chord either in a major or minor triad, you will need the three main notes. The chord is formed by replacing the third note with either the second or the fourth note. For example, the three main notes in the C major chord are C, E, F. To make a suspended chord, you can replace the E with the D to have C, D, G. That will form a suspended second. You can also decide to replace the E with an F instead and end up with C, F, G. It will then be called suspended fourth. Put more simply, a suspended 2 chord means you have to play the third note a half step lower and play the root second and fifth notes. The same applies if you see a suspended 4 chord. It means you will have to play the third note a half step higher. You will therefore play the root, the fourth and the fifth notes. Look at the screen to see concept of suspended fourth for every major chord. Additionally, you will also come across chords identified as dominant 7th suspended 4th chord. For this chord, you will only need to play the root, perfect 4th, perfect 5th and a minor 7th. It is often symbolized as 7 SUS4. For the key of C, the resulting chord would therefore have the following notes: C, F, G, B, small b, and would be written as C7 suspended 4. Musical intervals. When you talk about semitones, half step or whole steps on a piano, you are referring to musical intervals. These are the difference in pitch on the piano. For instance, all the notes of a D major scale are intervals. The smallest interval is a half step while the largest is an 8, also called an octave. A grand piano has 88 intervals from either side. You can play the notes one by one or together in a group. When you play them one by one, it's called a melodic interval, and when you play them together, it is called a harmonic interval. Intervals are important as they help in the formation of the different type of chords. When you move from a white key to another white key, it is considered to be a whole step. However, you may have to move from a white to a black key. In such a case, you make a half step and the name of the note is referred to as a minor. Sometimes you may move further by a half step on the fourth note. That leads to the formation of an augmented fourth. You may also move lower from, let's say, a fifth note. It will then be called a diminished fifth. However, do not worry about these terms and how to form the chords they represent. You will learn in much more detail later on this course.